structured files. IO module. Very few people will discuss about this module. Maybe, if I'm not sure, many people don't even know that there is a module called as IO module. But in fact, the backend operations are working like that. If you know, there are certain modules which will be automatically imported. So when we are using, so how it actually works is Python, when the terminal is opened, or like a interactive mode was opened, or like Python when it is running, it uses a module called as built-ins. If you aren't aware, this is a module called as built-ins. This built-in module, so if I load and if I do a DAR, you will notice the list of attributes. So maybe like if I can remove this print, you can see the list down. Did you see when we are working, we work with different kinds of exceptions. When you are working with exceptions, do you remember that we didn't import anything, right? We are not importing any module. But way back earlier, people used to separately import exceptions module and use it. But now we are not at all importing and we are directly using. Means, are there any built-in things? No. So this built-in module is something which is storing all these things. And the moment you are using Python, they will be automatically loaded. Why I'm telling this story? Because if I go here in detail, these are all exceptions you are aware of. But still, if you go through, so majority these are exceptions. But did you see some keywords are also there? Some keywords and all these things. And all these are like built-in functions, right? Hope you remember the DAR, dict, so all these things. You can relate to most of them. So in the same fashion, there will be IO also. And these will be loaded indirectly. So if I can see directly, it should come. So if not, it will be in the, if not in the IO module, it will be part of the metadata. So it seems like it's not here, but it's part of the metadata. So what is this IO module doing? So in fact, we have worked previously with the file operations, with open and all these things. In fact, all these things can be done with this IO module. So if the IO module, if you can notice, it has all these kinds of things like file IO, buffer IO. So all this information is there. What we can do with that? Typically, you know, right, how to work with a file, how to do operations. If let's say I want to work with a file, what is that we are doing till now? So with open of, so context manager, yesterday I told, with open of file.txt. So if you want to do in a read operation or write operation, you should specify that more. So if I say like write as a file handler, I can do some writing, right? So file handler dot write of, say this is first line. This is how we have written. In the same fashion, we can do the same thing with io.open of, so file.txt, write option as file handler. So file handler dot write of, so this is first line. Did you notice any difference between these two? So don't you see that exactly we are using the open file? So till now what you are doing, open is a built-in function we are using. But at the same time, we can do the same thing with io.open also. If this is the scenario, which one do you prefer? Do you want to import an IO module and use it like this? Or this is a built-in one? So which one you want to use? The first option. So like that, if you want to read a file, so in the same lines, if you want to read an existing file, so how we do typically, you read, right? You open in a read mode and get the file content. So you can ask like, hey, content is equal to, so file handler dot read. This is how you do, and you can print the content. So the point is like you can get it. In the same fashion, I can do here also in the same way. So instead of open, you do like this. So don't you see both are exactly doing the same thing? Which one do you prefer, io.open or like direct open? So direct one. So for these kind of operations, this is not useful. But this is an old way, still it is useful. But there is other kinds of things. Means assume that you are working on a unit testing. Assume that there is a file, you need to read the data and you need to process. Instead of actually reading the file, you need to assume that you are reading from the file, but you want to give your own test data. In that case, what you will do? So we will not go like this, right? So we should go in the alternative way. So where you get the data, so and process. For that, IO has something called as StringIO. This is something interesting. So when you're reading a file, there are two types of files we can read. So one is a binary data, other one is a text file, right? So for that, there are two streams like this StringIO and BytesIO. First one is a StringIO. So if you want to read a data, so till now, if you want to read the data, first we need to have a file, right? But without file also we can read. So for that, first we need to take a stream. I will take my stream is equal to like this. And I will ask, hey, what is the stream? It has nothing. So the data is simple. But if you want to read the data from the stream, so we need to do like content is equal to stream dot read. But you didn't give any input from where it will read. It is saying that read needs an argument. So you didn't read. So this particular string IO actually will take a value. Means we need to give some input string. So some input string. So for that, I will take an input string. I can give separately or directly also I can give. Input string is equal to, say like I will write hello world something. So this is like reading from a string. So till now you read from a file. Now you read from a string and you ask, hey, what is the content? I will ask. Now did you see, as if it read from a file, it is reading from a string. Sir, what is this point, sir? Directly we can use, right? I told you the example, why, in which case we use it. When you're working with unit tests, so you want to test a particular functionality, then what you will do, instead of actually reading from the file, you pass a test data, thinking that, this is would be the data. So now do the test. So like that, if you want to process, it will be useful. And similarly, in the same fashion, like reading from a file and writing from to a file, in the same fashion for the stream also, you read from this. Similarly, write to a string. So even for writing also, we need to have a stream. In the same fashion, stream is equal to IO dot string IO. So for string IO, earlier when you are reading, you passed a string. But when you're writing, you need not pass. So after writing this, I do like a stream dot write off. So I will write the same hello. Instead of hello Python, I write hello Python. So I will ask, hey, content is equal to, so stream dot get value. If I ask stream dot get value, you can see that content will come. Did you see now? This is where you read. This is how you write. So, so now you understood. In the same fashion, if you want to do the same thing for a byte string, so bytes data means like, so working here would be like this. Creating a byte stream means in the same fashion, now we need to create a stream is equal to IO dot bytes IO. So bytes IO is something very important. Okay. So now if you see this example, you created a string. So how do you write the data to it? So if I ask this string, same like IO string, it's a byte string. So in the same fashion, after creating the byte string, if you want to write the data or read the data, so the process is very simple. So if you want to read the data, so what is the process? You take the stream and you pass it. So so IO dot byte stream of B. Observe carefully. If you write like an ordinary string, it cannot take. So This is like a general error you will get. Observe this one very clearly. Whenever you are working with a bytes object, you need to give the byte strings. Byte string means like it will appear like an ordinary string. If you are like an ordinary characters, then you need to prepend it with a B. If you don't write B, it will throw an error. If you write B, now it will work perfectly. So after writing, if you ask, hey, give me the content, it will say byte string. In the same fashion, when you are reading, so you pass the content and you are reading from it. So if you want to write actually in the same fashion, so you can write also. And from the stream, if you want to retrieve the value in the same fashion, how you did, you asked for a get value and printed, right? In the same fashion here also same thing. You wrote the content and you can ask that streams.get value, you get it. So here everything at the binary level only you work. So this is how you work on it. At the same time, say like you have a file. If you see the current directory, so how do you see the current directory, list of files in the current directory? So import OS. So os.listdir in the current directory. If you see in the list.dir in the current directory, maybe like you want only the text files. I am not interested in others. So then what I can do? So file for file in os.list directory if. So how do you check whether the file is ending with a .txt? So you can say like, so file is a string, dot ends with. You can simply ask like .txt. Like this also you can do os.path.split text. Like that also we can do. So if that is the case, then you do it. Now you get only the text files, right, in the current directory. You see you have something called as file.txt. Now you want to read that. So like creating a reader buffer. If you want to create, sometimes you have a real file, but you want to read it, but you want to create like a string buffer. So in that case, first read the file. So either using directly with io dot file reader also, or directly also you can give whatever the file.txt. So when you are reading the content, so there is one more mode if you aren't aware. If there is a binary data, when you are reading, we should pass like B. So for binary data files, let's say like a PDF file or an image file, when you are reading, we should do like this. So maybe like, let me take an example. I have a binary data. So even I can take a binary data. If I have a image, I try to do, if I have an image, let me take that image and work on it. How do you import file? So this is how import, load like a buffer. So then you can work with it. Sometimes like when you want to work with the same file, the other side means like when you want to write one buffer file, means like when you are creating like a write buffer. This is like a reader if you have a file. But similarly, if you want to write, so then we need to have a writer buffer. So for that, we create a writer buffer. So where you have the same file and you write, so to it. So whenever you want to work. So like that we can do. And also you remember, so earlier we have worked with the different kinds of text, even text IO file formatter. So for that also we can work. If you want to create like a binary, if you can create a text IO file formatter, and even when you want to write also we can do. At the same time, not only this, when you want to work with file formats with different encoding, so instead of actually playing with the real files, you everything work in a buffer itself. Say if you want to write with certain encoding, so you can work with that encoding. So or like so initially some data if you want to push, but subsequently if you want to modify, so like that also we can do. So in this case, what happened? IO module max takes like 2 arguments, but 3 arguments were given. So means like every time it changes, right? Initial value, new value. It is not taking the encoding. So it will do with a default encoding. So the encoding is like default. So now it works. Means like it changes the API for every now and then. So lastly, so if you want to work on the data, but if you want initially some data, you can work with like this. So this is all about this IO module. So even when you have a large data also, you can specify. So what is the largest data that you want to work? That buffer size you can specify. So it means if I have a file, when you are writing, it will create a local buffer. That buffer, if you specify, it will create that much and you can work with that. So locally when you want to work. So compared to an ordinary string, this would be much more matured in terms of processing also, it would be very good. So, and also like, if you want to now work on the other side of things, like if unstructured files. So let me start with that. Same like these files, in a structured files when you are going, so first we will go for something called as pickle. What is a pickle? So in fact, pickle is one kind of file format, .ipynb. Okay, what is a pickle? So to understand what is the concept of pickle, so first we need to understand what is serialization. So serialization and deserialization, this concept you should understand. What is serialization and what is deserialization? Serialization means from Python object, you are converting to a flattened object. So first of all, I will tell you the essence why we need it. First of all, let's say you have in Python, we have a dictionary, we have a list, tuple, everything. Within Python, if I pass from one function to another, one class to another, or anything, anyone can understand because everyone knows the structure. But what if I want to pass, say I have a list of data, that list of data I want to pass to a C language. C language should understand this format. Or like I want to pass to Java. Java should understand it. Or like Java people want to communicate with Python. Means like this cross language communication, if someone want to do, how can one language understand the structure of another language? It's very difficult, right? You need to write an interface and all these things. It's very crazy. So to avoid that concept, to make it easy, they created one kind of structure called as flattened structure. Any object belonging to any language, if need to be understood by another language, if everything is flat, so means like if you have a structured way, no one can understand. If I make it like in a flat fashion, other language can also understand, right? So that is the entire process of the serialization and deserialization. In this serialization means first converting from Python object to string. So in the same fashion, if you the same thing you go in a Java or a Go language, that particular Java code converting to string or like a flattened file, that is the serialization. The reverse is like a deserialization. So for this, there are like different kinds of file formats. The first such kind of thing is called as marshalling. So that's why this technique is also called as marshalling. So, but nowadays no one is using marshalling. It's a very primitive way. So next came like pickle. So pickle is the most popular mechanism, especially when communicating with C language with others. So these are all language agnostic, means the same things we can use for different languages also. Then like to mature it, they came with something called a shell. Then over a period of time to further mature, they came with another things like XML. So and YAML. So you have like a JSON. So the order may be different, but over the evolution, many things came, but very few we can remember, which are very popular. So let's work on them to understand. Our things right now we are working on pickle. So this concept is called as a pickling. If you create something like a pickle, that is called as pickling. So like serialization and deserialization, they also call it as a pickling and unpickling. So pickling means creating a pickle object is called as pickling. It may sound funny, but that is what the truth. So for pickle, In Python 2, there was another two modules actually. One is a pickle module and a C pickle module. But in Python 3, the C pickle module of Python 2 was converted to pickle. That's why if you see any old documentation, sometimes they will import like C pickle. It doesn't mean something else. It's the same module. If I do a dir, you can get it. And if I say help, I'll get the entire documentation. Create portable serialized representation of Python objects. What do you mean by portable serializable means? So if you create an object that can be transported, means like, so simple. If I need to connect to Bank of America or like, some other bank. So if there are different banks, they don't give their source code to you directly, right? How do you interface? You connect with a REST API or something. If you connect with a REST API, they will give you like a JSON response. So means they may have written their code in a different language, but it is language agnostic, right? So that is how they do. So Pickle is one such format, but JSON, YAML, all these things are different formats. In the evolution process, it is like better. So earlier there is a marshalling, but no one is still using. That's why we ignore it. So now if you can focus on pickling. So first, what will happen here? Pickle to string object. So this is called as a pickling because you take any object and you can convert. So let me take one Python object. Python object means I have a basic data types also. I can check for conversioning of basic data types too. So, but like, let me take a complex, let's say dictionary. I have a dictionary called as name John. So age is equal to 30. So maybe I can take, like, uh, married is like true. Okay. So in Python, we have true like this, right? Capital TRUE. So now I converted pickle dot dump s. So better I will do one thing. You don't call it as dumps. You call it as a dump s. Then you can better remember. There are two options called as dump s and dump. If you call it as a dump s, you can better remember like it is converting to a dumping to a string. Means your dictionary will be converted to a string. So what is this, sir? We can also convert to a dictionary to a string, right? So you may think like that. If I do like a direct conversion to a string, str of dictionary, what will I get if I convert my dictionary is there? Say like I'm converting to a dictionary to a string, assume. So if I do like this, what will happen? If I ask, the entire data will be converted to string as it is. But if I do like a pickle, what will happen? Pickle dot dump as of data I'm doing. And if I'm asking, now did you understand? Converting it to a ordinary string is different. Converting to a pickle is different, right? So means what is this doing, sir? It is converting to its own binary data. Did you see? It's a binary data. Though you have an ordinary things, it is converting to binary data. You can seem like certain things are understandable, like a name, John, age, so married, but other things you cannot understand. Means it is converting to its own format. So you cannot decrypt it. That's not the point. So it's a converting to this. This is one of the serialization format. But how do you convert back? So how to convert it back? So we have that is called as deserialization or unpickling. Deserialization or unpickling. So pickle dot load s. So why use load s? Because you have loaded to a string. From that string, we need to load back. So you can pass that pickled string and you can retrieve the original data. Now, did you see you got the original data, the same John, same age, true, everything, right? So that is what is. So this is how you work. Now, assignment is like, so try all data types. So means like a basic and data structures. What are the data structures? So in Python, data structures means list tuple set and dictionary. So in Python, for pickling, pickling and unpickling. Pickling and unpickling means serialization and deserialization. So that's the point. Okay, this is what you need to do. So next, after this, so similarly, you wrote to a file, it's a string, right? What if you want to pickle to a file? This concept is called a serialization only. But the only difference is, if you do convert to a string, then what max you can do? You can pass from one object to another, or in a file response you can pass. That's it. But if you create like a file, you can store and use for afterwards. Sometimes when you are in a big ETL job, so intermediate data you can store in a pickle format such that next jobs can pick from there. So all these things you can do. So if I do the same job, if I have the same dictionary, say like I take the same data, and now this data I want to convert to a file. So first writing to a file I will do. If I want to write to a file, I take say something like a pickle.data and I want to work. You see here. So pickle.data. And did you see when I'm writing, I didn't do it just W. I'm doing WB because it's a binary data that I'm working right now. So pickle.dump, it's not dump s. So when you're writing to a file, observe this carefully. And this is where most of the people get confused, even me till today. So the first one should be the data. What are the file you or data, that object you want to convert? And the second is the file handler. So if you write like file also fine or file handler also, what are the name you write, it's up to us. So now if you write, you create a file now. So if you see in the current directory, there is a data.pickle. If you open that, it doesn't open directly. If I say that open with a text editor, so you can see it's a crazy thing, right? So that's how it works. Now, if you want to see the data, typically in Linux, what you do like a cat command. So if I say data.pickle, if I want to see, you can see the content. And these pickle files, you need not write only with .pickle. Sometimes you can write with a .pickle, .pickle, or like .pkl. But trust me, even if you write with any other file format also it works. But this is the best way to write. You need to be aware. Then sir, how to retrieve the things back again? So you have a file handler. So you can load directly from it. So you can write a file. So again, when you're reading, ensure that you are writing a B. Else what happens, it would be difficult for you when you're loading. It says like when I am expecting like a bytes, you gave like a string like that it says. So now if you load from that file, it loaded and you retrieved the original content. So this concept is called as serialization or deserialization. To be precise, as we are working with pickles, it's called as pickling and unpickling. And it doesn't mean that if you have a single dictionary, you can have like a multiple objects also. If let's say I'm working on multiple objects, and for these multiple objects, I want to work. Say like I have now say dictionaries, two data, and now I want to do the serialization for it. These two dictionaries, I can pass like to a tuple or a list or anything, and that end result I want to see. Now, did you see what happened? In the same fashion, I want to deserialize it. Deserialize means I can load from that string. So as I'm doing from a string, pickle.loads. See, when you are working with strings, it is dump s and load s. When you are working with a file, dump and load. So that's what you should be observing. And as you gave like a tuple of two values, when you retrieve also you get two objects. So that's why I did a tuple unpacking with two objects so that I can see my own things. A tuple of two dictionaries. In the result also tuple of same two dictionaries. So similarly, if you want to pickle, sometimes you will have a very large data and you want to transport or store. So this can happen in your ETL pipelines. So in that case, you want to do compression also. So when you want to work with compression, there is a new module called as zzip. So zzip is for compression every time. So we know anyhow we are using pickle. So with this pickle, so what we need to do, instead of like a direct open. So till now you do io.open or direct open, right? Instead of that, we need to use zzip.open. To do that zzip.open, So first we need to take it with zzip, means like if I take this original data, like what are the data dictionary we have, so I can take it, or like any combination whatever we have, I took that. So till now, how do you create a file? So directly open of file, or like io.open of file with IO module. So similarly, the same opening, now we need to do with a zzip. So zzip.open of file we need to do. So when you want to pickle with compression, instead of opening a direct file, we need to open this compression file. So for that, I can do like this. So zzip.open of pickle.zzip. Did you see this is a double extension? So from now you will see a new kinds of file formats. Pickle.zzip. So for better representing. So it doesn't matter that they are expecting, but it's a best practice to understand that this is a zipped file format of pickle. So then when anyone reading also, it's easy, right, to recognize. So how it was created in the evolution process. So in the same fashion, when you are retrieving from it back, you need to do the same thing again. Means as you use the zzip for thing, when you are unzipping also in the same fashion. So same data.pickle.zzip. So see, when you're writing, you do a WB. When you're reading, RB. So read, write, append, everything you have. As whenever you are working with binary data, so B should be appended every time. So these were like extra three. So, and now after doing this thing, you can push and again reload from it. In the process, in intermediate data, you can see what is this data containing. For that, if I do like a cat of this one, you can see the content was there, but it was zipped enough. So it would occupy less memory compared to the previous one. So you can check the memory. So how to check the file size? I told like os.stat, right? Using os.stat, check how much memory difference is there. Take that as a small assignment. Similarly, if you have like external dependencies, this is more important. You may think like it's something out of bounds, but like in real time, you will use it a lot. Because when you work in real time, you will have data of different kinds of file formats or data belonging to different modules. So next you will learn, apart from the basic data types like int, float, structure, and so, there is another kinds of data structures you will see down the line, like a NumPy arrays and like pandas data frames, Spark frames, all these things. In that case, you should be further careful. So let's say you are going for a NumPy array. This is not like an ordinary Python object. Then you need to pass the protocol is equal to highest protocol. Highest protocol doesn't mean that like it has some set of protocols, means use all of that to get my things done. That's what you are telling. So like that, you can go. So down the line, when we go for like data frames, you can do the same thing with the data frames too. So in the same fashion, so as of now, I'm not telling, but if there are any exceptions, if you want to handle that exceptions also, we can do. So for handling the exceptions, there is something called as unpickling error. Did you see in this case, I handled two errors together. Means if the file not found also come into the error, or if you are unable to pickle also do it. Now the assignment for you is like, in which cases, so we cannot do a pickling. What data can't be pickled? So that you do your research. And similarly, when you are working with a large data and whenever you're doing a big pipeline, so incrementally we need to so add. Means at a time you will not get like bulk of 1 GB data. Sometimes over a period of time, so you'll get the data. So every time when you're getting, you need to consumably do. So I gave like a simple example. You see that I have a data of like 1, 2, 3 into 10 to the power of 1 by 1 to the power of 6 means like 1 mega, right? So that much time. So if you multiply, just imagine how much big the list would be. That big list I want to add. Now you see what I did. So I did like a BytesIO string. Means instead of writing to a file, I'm writing to the buffer itself. If you want to directly write to a file, replace this buffer with the actual file. That's the difference. Now I am doing the pickle.pickler of this serialized data, and each time I am dumping it. Dump means what? To write. So I am writing to this serialized object. So similarly, so from that, if you want to retrieve the data, so that's a vice versa. So you can just see these are like advanced options, but down the line it can help. So it is saying like there is an attribute error. So what is the attribute error? In the pickle dump somewhere. Yeah, pickle.pickler. So maybe like, that I should see. So pickle object dot pickler. Okay, leaving it. So I will quickly go to the next one called a shell. So this pickle is good, but there is a problem with this pickle that anyone can edit this pickle file. So if you take a pickle file, if you are writing, that is fine. But in future, people come with different data and they can change the pickle data in middle and you can do anything. So due to that, like there is no reliability. Means like, let me give one simple example. If I take this file and do some options, say like, um, if I take something like a pickle object, you see, I take one object and I'm writing like this. Typically, what will happen? You have the entire data. So if you retrieve, you get it. So the pickle string, if you can observe, it is somewhere like this. Or like, so you take some other good options, like say, um, something like this. You observe in this case, what will happen? I have a set I am trying to pickle and I'm getting the object. In the process, somewhere there is a rat, right? Somewhere. Now what I will do, I will go to this pickle string. Now I want to find this last but one things and I want to update it. So what I will do, so this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. So now I will do from -12 onwards. So I try to get that particular rat. So I try to change this rat to some cat. Then what will happen? So, and if I do an unpickle, so I get from that, right? So if I get like, say ASD is there, right? So I want to change. So from 12 to something, if I go, so you can try that. So, but if you change it, it would be an issue. To avoid that kind of issue, to increase some kind of safety to this, so they introduced something called a shelve. Shelve means like same like a pickle only, but with a slight difference. Shelve usage.ipynb. Shelve is same like this. Uh, Shell. Okay. So what this shelve does is that it will take your object. So, but like it will do a slight difference. But one different thing is like it will store in a .db file. So stores in .db files. So it means this is something different. Till now pickle means .pickle, right? So this is for the first time you're seeing a different file format. Now, how this works? There is something called a shell. If I import and ask, hey, what is the shell? It will say that manageable shelves of pickled objects. Means it is working on top of pickle only. So if I ask for the dir of the shell, dir, you can notice that it is also having a pickler in the backend, the open function, collections, pickler, unpickler, and everything, BytesIO object. Now, if I open a pickle file and if I want to write something, so First, I am creating a new shell file. If I want to create like a file first, I create like a shell file. So either I can do with a context.do or like directly also I can do. So there are two ways, like this also I can create, or like with the operation also I can do. After creating this object, I need to create. If let's say I have a dictionary like this, and if I want to shelve it, so instead of directly doing, so for this object, we need to pass with a key. Means if someone want to modify, they should know that this key, if they don't know this key, they cannot access it. So this is how you work. So like this you can write, or the same thing you can rewrite in a one line. So it means like using a context manager. So in the other way. So if I do in one line, it works. And you know, right, you need not close when you're using a context manager. That's the difference. So once you write it, so we can see that. So my shell.db. If you open, oh, cat I need to do. Cat is like a Linux command. Now, did you see? Compared to an ordinary pickle file, this is slightly different. So it is doing on top of like a pickle only, but it's doing better. Now, how the security it will have, how it can help us. So means like when you're accessing, you should pass that particular key. So again, if I open, so I need to pass this. So only if you have that key, you can get that particular file. So means if I have to open, I again open with the same cell. So existing is equal to key. If you give the key, only then you can access the value. If you don't give the key, you cannot access it. So as I gave the key, it worked. So, and by default, so this shelve does not do not track modifications to violate the objects. But if you make anything, then you will see the difference. Let's say again I'm opening the same file, shell file. Say this time, the same file I open. If you want, like I can use like with shell as a file handler. Yes, also I can do file handler. Also I can do. With respect to that, I can ask. So before and after. Now if you see, so fh, so off key. If you want to retrieve the things, we need to have this key. Say like the existing value if you want to see. So existing value if I want to see. This is how I need to ask, right? I can check. So for if you open like a file handler and if you pass the key, you can access it. But if you want to modify it, so how do you do? So whenever like you have, say like in this, I have this one what? This value. If I want to add something else, then what I will do? So simply, so file handler of, so key one. Within that, I want to add a new value. So maybe like new value is like, so this is not there before, something like that I want to add. Now, after changing it, without even closing this, so I'm asking, hey, do you know the what is the existing values? So it is like a before, it's like after. Now I'm asking, it will say what is before and what is after. Now you made some changes, right? So after doing the changes and then closing, I'm again opening the same file handler and to check what is the values. Say as like a file handler. Now I'm asking to print. So fh of key one. If you ask, now did you see what you got? So what are the modifications were not there, right? So modifications were not reflected. Means you can change. Within the same file handler only I did it. But even then I couldn't see after that. So what could be the reason for it? Means simple. So when you made a changes, that should be trackable. To catch the changes, we need to open it in a different file format. Means the same thing, but the extra flag we need to pass. So maybe like, with as file handler, I did like a write back is equal to true. Now after doing the write back equal to true, if I do the same options what I did earlier. So before and after I am checking and I'm asking. You see, before I am doing and after I'm asking and I'm doing. So automatically it will do the change. Now did you see the new changes were there? Now, so after this, again I need to open and check it. So whenever I am writing a write back, I need to open in this format. But after that, I don't need, right? So let me open now. So to check it. This time I don't want to write to it. So I just want to see. Now, did you see what happened? So modifications are reflected right now, right? So that is what I want to bring to your notice. So the point is like, so the note that we can make is that shelve is like something more secure compared to an ordinary shell. Same like a shell, but extra thing is like we need to have with a keys. So when you want to modify also, we need to modify with respect to that keys. And when you want to modify an existing one, we need to say write back equal to true. So when you do with the write back equal to true, any changes will be further notified. And did you see it is a .db file? You cannot see it. So when you open it, did you see what happened? It is like a crazy thing. So we didn't add too much data. In fact, like very small data we added. But see how many lines, a lot of things is coming, right? But you can see something like a sample data. But in this entire shell, what I write? Just these lines. This is the only data I have. But why it gave this much? Because it is scrambling and adding the hashes. So it makes it difficult for anyone to understand. If so, if someone can understand the length of your string, so they can interpret what it could be. So they will scramble with a hash. So as a user, you cannot retrieve and you cannot even predict what it could be. So that's the beauty of it. And next, after the shell, many things came in the evolution. So, but one thing which is very notable is about the XML. So XML format. XML is something which really worked crazily in the previous decade. Even the HTML, the website that you're using, is an offspring of XML. So what is a typical XML? How it gonna be? So let me give you a simple example. If I take like a book.xml, a typical book.xml will be like this, where so it will have everything like a tags. If I can minimize, you can observe. Everything will have two tags, opening tag, closing tag. Did you see the opening tag don't have a slash, whereas the closing tag will have a slash. The same tag, but with the slash extra. Everything will be pairs. If I go here, so even these books also, did you observe? They were in a tags. So everything. And whenever there is a comment we need to write like this. So like a question mark, and after that these two dots, and we need to write within it. This is a typical syntax for a comment. So, and how the other tags? Every tag will have a opening tag and closing tag. But this you see that along with this tag you have some values. These are called as attributes. So within the tag level you can use some attributes also. So it will give that. And within, so this is like a root tag. Within that it is a child tag. There are like many childs like this. And within that each of the child, there is like a subchilds. So, and see here, in each tag, you can have some content. It can be like a string, it can be a number, so any data type. You can take and you can create. And similarly, let me give you one more example. Say this time I'm going for something like a person.xml. If you have a person.xml, you see here how it works. This is a very big thing. So here also you see how it is. So it is a data tag. At the very first level, if you see data, opening tag and closing tag. If I go one level, did you see person ID equal to 1, ID 2, ID 3, like that we have. If I go one the furthermore step, did you see it is having like multiple things here? So these are like, some tags are like direct tags, some tags has like multiple values. See, if you have a single value, everything is represented in a single line, right? So if it is a single string, single integer, like a float, another float. But if you have an address tag, within that address you have two sub tags. One is a street and the other one is street city. And similarly, you have hobbies. So hobbies are like multiple. So when you have a list of values, so like this you see how it was written. And similarly, when you have languages, that is also a list like that within it. So there is no concept like a list. You should think like an array. So that's the best way to represent. And in terms of values, did you see integer, float, string, binary data? See here, bytes data, and like a tuple when I have how it is written, and like when I have a dictionary. So these are all valid things. The same thing is repeated. So for a different person, like that you can do. This is another good format, both for storage and transmission. So first, if you want to create one tag like this, so working with this, then how to work? So let me create. So working with xml.ipy and XML. So if I can start with, what is an XML? So extensible markup language. So this is what you need to remember. So as it is like a brain shield, and this is having this one concept you should be remembering. Extensible markup language. So you can call it as EML, right? So they call it as external symbol only. So you should call like that. And it is basically a precursor to your HTML also. So compared to HTML, this is old. And if you see like a ordinary HTML and an XML, what is the primary difference and focus? If you see, XML is used for like transport, whereas HTML is mainly for websites. So for working, like a formatting others. Both has the same concept. Every time we'll have a tags. So every tag will have a opening and close tags. And observe, sometimes if a particular tag don't have a value, instead of writing two tags separately, did you see how they are writing? In a one line they have written, right? Observe. This is like a self-closing tag. Means if you have a tag, but sometimes within the tag, there is no value. In that case, we can use it. So that's the beauty of it. These are called as self-closing tags. So that also will have worked. So we will see. So, sir, if I want to work on one of the tags, how to work? If you want to work with XMLs, there is a built-in module called as XML. So if you work like, there is something called as XML. And if I ask like a help of XML, like till now, if you see a list of items like core XML support, it has a lot of things. Primarily, it has something called as a DOM, called as document object model, and like parsers and SACs. SACs is the main API to work. But there were too many options. If we go for DAR also, it is like crazily big. A lot of things we can do. So, but like if you want here, there is a DOM parser. But so people will use something else. The most common usage is xml.e3.e3. Observe, sometimes it happens like this that when you do a DAR, everything should come right. But it is not there in DAR, but you can directly access. Generally, xml.e3 should be there, but it is not there. But if I can access, it will not throw error. Observe, this kind of syntax will be there sometimes. You should be aware of. Now, if I want to create a element so out of it, we can take like directly from it like elements and all these things. So for that, we can also work with this, like this also we can work, or like selective imports also we can do. Maybe like, instead of doing et dot so and so, I want selectively import this element, sub element, toString like that. So this is like alias import. This is like selective import. And similarly, we also work sometime afterwards with something like a DOM. So means XML.DOM you showed, right? So from that, DOM means like document object model. Whenever you are working, even a web browser will have a DOM. So this is a big work to do. So in the next class we will see about it. So like this,